Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Today's subject is gonna be a beefy one. This game has a number of famous field spells, both new and old. Dragonic Diagram, Necro Valley, Umi, and much like that last one, we're gonna be casting a spotlight on another that crops up amongst a number of different themes. Premiering in the June 2004 core set, Ancient Sanctuary, the Sanctuary in the Sky prevents any battle damage done to the owner of fairy monsters in battles they're involved in. But this simple and honestly underwhelming card belies a broader web of archetypes, all of whom are of the fairy persuasion. And as per the request of our Quasar commander over on the Patreon, we'll begin our journey across the hallowed structures that dot the serene clouds above. Gather at the temple, embrace the word of the great angels, and be ready to smite your opponents with the power of holy fire, cause it's time for Agents Explained. Today's episode is brought to you by my lovely patrons, as well as the wonderful people over at Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and save 5% on your order by using coupon code GoldenNova at checkout. So what's the deal with the agents? Well, they're a series of fairy monsters of the light attribute, mostly. Early members of the theme cared about having more life points than your opponent, with their effects getting stronger the bigger the difference grew. Though we wouldn't have that for long, pivoting to other value engines, be it the summoning of smaller monsters to fuel other lines of play or consistent removal. First up, we have one of our new monsters, the Agent of Life, Neptune, a level 1 monster with 0 attack and 600 defense. You can discard this card to special summon a The Agent monster from your hand or graveyard, except a copy of this card. Or, if the Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field or in either grave, you can special summon a Hyperion monster instead. Neither player can tribute a monster summoned with this effect until the end of your opponent's turn, and if this card is banished, you can add a The Sanctuary in the Sky from your deck to your hand. So while we can't use Neptune to pull monsters out of our deck, we can still use it to either turbo out monsters that are stuck in our hand, or bring them back from the grave. And bonus, it gives them a pretty unique piece of protection that keeps them safe from being kaiju'd for a bit. Getting the bonus effect of summoning Hyperion is actually going to be pretty easy too, now that we have a whole bunch of cards that count as the Sanctuary in the Sky while on the field or in the graveyard. But sadly, the search effect isn't nearly as good, as the original field spell is the only card of its name that exists in the main deck, so your results on this are going to vary. And that's not the only disappointment too, they didn't make Neptune a tuner. What's up with that? The Agent of Mystery Earth is a level 2 tuner monster. See, it's not out of the question, with 1000 attack and 800 defense. And when normal summoned, lets you add a The Agent monster from your deck to your hand, except a copy of itself. And while Sanctuary in the Sky is face up on the field, you can add a Master Hyperion from your deck to your hand instead. We've talked a lot about Hyperion, but haven't really seen any so far, but trust me, they'll be here later in the video. Earth is a pretty good search card for the theme, Stratosing out our entire lineup while giving us synchro access. It's pretty simple, but very effective. And if you're not a fan of her, I'm sure you'll be global warming up to them a little more every day. Agent of Creation Venus is a level 3 monster with 1600 attack and 0 defense, and it can pay 500 life points to special summon a Mystical Shine Ball from your hand or deck, which themselves are level 2 light fairy normal monsters with 500 attack and defense. A soul of light covered by mystical shine. When you see its beautiful shape, your dream will come true. And that's not just some fluff text. Venus and the Balls have been making some of the jankiest combos possible since forever. In the Xyz era, the Shine Balls gave you fantastic access to rank 2s like Gachi Gachi Gentetsu and Daigusto Phoenix, but it really shined during the Link era. A single monster and 1500 life points turning into 4 valid materials was all the fuel that every YouTube comboer needed. And with monsters like Link Spider and World Chalice Imduk, it was fairly easy to convert those normal monsters into effect ones should a Link monster call for those. Or heck, even just if they need different names. Hello, sorry yugioh. While it doesn't see widespread play nowadays, it remains as one of the most infamous, if not most powerful, material generating engines in the game, held back by the fact that you have to run 3 vanilla bricks to use it. But it was so famous for this that it was one of the few agent monsters to receive a dark retrain. The Agent of Destruction Venus is a level 3 Dark Tuner monster with 0 attack and 1600 defense, and you can banish The Agent of Creation Venus from your grave to special summon this card from your hand. It can pay life points in multiples of 500, and for every 500 spent, you target a mystical shine ball that is either in your grave or is banished and special summon them, but put them on the bottom of the deck whenever they leave the field. However, you can only use each effect once per turn and only once per turn. This prevents you from using up all the monsters as material, banishing the original Venus to summon out the remix, then getting a whole new field of fresh cards all at once. Though if you're able to special summon them out in some other way, all those shine ball revivals are fair game. And it even works with future copies of original Venus, because now those shine balls are back in the deck to summon again later. Unless they were used as Xyz material, but even so, the power of these cards is undeniable. And bless them, they've even gifted us with the opportunity to make endless jokes about balls. Where would we be without them? The Agent of Force Mars is a level 3 monster with 0 attack and defense that's unaffected by spell cards. And while you control a face-up the Sanctuary in the sky and your life points are higher than your opponent, this card gains attack and defense equal to the difference. Here's an example of the old life points matter agents, and this one is fairly simple. You're rewarded both for playing any life point gain effects or by being aggressive to widen that life point gap, and the more you do, the more Mars can help wrench it open. And now that we have more Sanctuary substitutes, it's easier to get this effect online than ever. That being said, it is still unstable. And for as good as it is at capitalizing on your gains, it's equally as useless when you're behind. So really, the planets do have to align if you want to get any value for when Mars attacks. The Agent of Miracles Jupiter is a level 4 monster with 1800 attack and 1000 defense, and once per turn you can remove from play one The Agent monster from your grave, then target a light fairy monster you control, and it gains 800 attack until the end of the turn. And once per turn, you can discard a fairy monster to target one of your banished light fairies and special summon it. But the Sanctuary in the sky has to be on the field to activate and resolve that effect. Like we mentioned with Mars, hitting that bonus threshold is easier than ever, making this a pretty consistent way to recall your agents, or any other light fairy that you're running. And let's not forget that attack boost. By itself, Jupiter threatens a 2600 point body, which is outrageous on a normal summon, and if need be, we can augment our other light fairies with that boost as well. This is an older piece of legacy support that's just gotten better over time, and considering how some of these cards have aged, well, it's a miracle it got this far. The Agent of Wisdom Mercury is a level 4 monster with 0 attack and 1700 defense, and during your standby phase, if you control this face-up card in your monster zone and had no cards in your hand at the end of your opponent's turn, you draw a card. That's a strange effect. It's like we're revisiting Cyber Archfiend, but with way more convoluted text. And all of that for just a single extra draw. I mean, granted, if you have multiple Mercuries on board, they just check during the last turn state of play, so technically these can all stack, drawing you upwards of 3 cards if 3 Mercuries have survived up till this point, but I don't know. I think the real test of wisdom is not putting this in your deck. The Agent of Entropy Uranus is a level 5 Dark Tuner monster with 2200 attack and 1200 defense, and if the Sanctuary in the sky is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. And once per turn, you can send a The Agent monster from your deck to the grave, and if you do, this card's level becomes the level of the monster sent to the grave by this effect. So we've got a pretty easy to summon level 5 tuner that modulates by throwing cards from your deck into the grave. This doesn't sound like an agent monster, it sounds like a synchron monster. And with no restrictions and hardly any limitations to speak of, you've got an outrageous monster that provides a lot of flexibility. No buts about it. The Agent of Judgment Saturn is a level 6 monster with 2400 attack and 0 defense, and while your life points are higher than your opponent's, you contribute this card to inflict damage to your opponent equal to the difference. But you must control the Sanctuary in the sky to activate and resolve this effect, and you cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this effect. This is an absolute bomb of a card once you've gotten enough ahead of your opponent. But kinda like how Mars can swing wildly between broken and broke, you can end up sinking a lot of resources into a monster that doesn't deal a significant amount of damage. Heck, any amount that isn't lethal will feel pretty bad since you're going the way of the runic player and skipping your battle phase to accomplish this. You can't even go to battle, whittle them down enough to make Saturn a win button, then go to main phase 2 because you can't go to battle phase period the turn you want to use this effect. Now, the keen-eyed among you may notice that the effect isn't once per turn, and the Neptune can revive agents from the grave, and for a bit, I thought that would be the avenue this would be going. Saturn FTK. But I am sad to remind you about the lingering effect that Neptune gives to monsters that it summons. For you see, the tributing prevention is in truth not meant to protect you, but to protect your opponent from Saturn being tributed multiple times in a single turn. I'm sad to say it, but this card has been thwarted at every turn, which is actually a big flavor win considering Saturn's source material. The Sega Saturn! Master Hyperion is a level 8 monster with 2700 attack and 2100 defense that you can special summon from your hand by banishing a The Agent monster from your hand, field, or grave. Once per turn, you can banish a Light Fairy monster from your grave, then target a card on the field and destroy it. But while the Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field, you can activate this effect twice per turn. It doesn't help pay the cost or make it more powerful, you just get to do it a second time. But with spot removal like that, it's kinda hard to complain. This was the Agent's big boss monster back in the day, and honestly, still puts in good work now. It's easy to deploy, has a pretty big stat line, and comes equipped to deal with a number of problems. Hyperion has all the tools needed to put the game in the palm of his hand, along with the whole solar system as it turns out. Hey, do you think that thing's to scale? Majesty Hyperion is a level 8 dark monster with 2100 attack and 2700 defense, and you can special summon this card from your hand or grave by banishing a The Agent monster from your hand, field, or grave, and you can only special summon this card once per turn this way. Any battle damage you take from battles involving your fairy monsters is also inflicted to your opponent, and once per turn you can banish a fairy monster from your hand or grave, then target a card in either grave and banish it. But it can do this twice if the Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field or in either grave. Here's our Dark Hyperion counterpart, trading out raw power for utility. No longer will it be blowing up cards or run over anything bigger than a Cyber Dragon, but now it's a repeatable level 8 monster as long as you have the agents to feed to it, and can attack the graveyard, which is a pretty strong feature in a number of different matchups. But that's not all, because this also lets you play Mikonko. While this makes both players take damage from fairy battles, remember that the Sanctuary in the Sky keeps any player from taking damage in battles involving their own fairy monsters. So feel free to crash your tiny fairies into bigger monsters and reap the rewards. Unless your opponent is also on fairies, because this is reciprocal, but when's that gonna happen? It's also good to see Hyperion experimenting with posing. The original was just so flat and lifeless. Now we have a Hyperion with extra deck access and curves. Alright, that covers the main deck squad. Now it's time to show off what we have lurking in the extra deck. The Executor of the Underworld, Pluto, is a level 5 Dark Synchro Tuner monster with 2300 attack and 0 defense, requiring generic materials, and is always treated as a The Agent card. Once per turn, you can banish a monster from your grave, then target an effect monster on the field and change it to face down defense position, and is a quick effect if the Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field or in either grave. You can also banish this card from your grave to add a The Sanctuary in the Sky from your deck or grave to your hand. That's pretty important because that covers a number of cards that take on that name while in the graveyard. We'll be covering those details in the next section, but trust me, we have some fantastic choices lined up. And that Book of Moon effect is pretty good too. We've already seen how Rescue Ace Preventer elevated its own theme, so having a way to shut off a number of plays just by turning a monster into an inert square of cardboard can keep you a few steps ahead of your opponent. Not to mention that, as a Synchro Tuner, you can climb up into some funny options that regular tuners just don't have access to. This is an all-around fantastic addition to the theme, and also showcases the designer's sense of humor once again. Cause there isn't really a reason why we couldn't have just called this a The Agent card in the actual text, not added in the little parenthetical, until you remember that the Agent monsters are named after planets, and Pluto is an X-planet. God, I love Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Flare Hyperion is a level 10 Synchro monster with 3200 attack and 2600 defense, requiring a tuner and one or more non-tuner fairy monsters as material. You can send a The Agent monster or a monster that mentions the Sanctuary in the Sky from your hand, deck, or extra deck to the grave, and until the end phase, this card's name becomes that monster's original name and replaces this effect with that monster's original effects. When your opponent activates a card or effect as a quick effect, you can banish a fairy monster from your hand or grave, then target a card on the field and banish it. So it's not negation, but it is still some pretty sweet removal. You don't even have to banish the card that triggered this effect, so your opponent will have to keep an eye eye on how they sequence their plays to avoid getting caught by one of Hyperion's obliterating rays of holy light. But what's really goofy is the effect copying. What can we do with that? Well, as a Hail Mary, you can copy Saturn and go for game if the conditions are right, but more practically, you can copy Creation Venus to summon out more free material, or Destruction Venus to bring back balls you've already scratched off the list. Mars gains attack and defense with its effect, so you'll get whatever bonus it provides on top of the base 3200 attack stat, or you can nab Jupiter for a more tame stat boost while giving you a chance to revive a fairy. And if you have Sanctuary in the Sky available, you can summon this out pretty easily. Just normal summon Earth, search out Master Hyperion, and take a spare agent monster from your hand, field, or grave, banish it, and there you go, a level 2 tuner and a level 8 non-tuner fairy. This makes for a strong field presence your opponent can't underestimate, because once you think you know what it's all about, they send Uranus from deck to grave to send another agent from deck to grave to level modulate, while loading up the grave to pull off something like a Christius summon. There's a lot of potential here for those with the time and patience to master it. Protector of the Agent's Moon is a Link 2 monster with 1800 attack, requiring any 2 fairy monsters as material. If this card is Link summoned, you can send a Sanctuary in the Sky, or a card that mentions it, from your deck to the grave. Or, if the Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field or in either grave, you can add a copy of the Agent of Mystery Earth from your deck or grave to your hand instead. It can also tribute a fairy monster, then target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. So in our extra deck lies a Foolish Burial for Sanctuary cards that eventually gets us our Stratos. This can, in turn, get us Master Hyperion off the Earth Search, or you can send Majesty Hyperion from deck to grave with Moon instead to set up an easy summon, which is probably your best bet since making Moon probably used up your normal summon anyway. And without restriction on their Link usage, this can climb you up into any number of other Link monsters. Strange group of qualifications for a card that's a protector of the agents, but without any defense points, I guess it was doomed from the start. That does it for the monsters, and now it's time for the spells and traps that make up the Sanctuary in the Sky canon. Most of them, anyway. Some are going to be reserved for the Parshath segment. The Chorus in the Sky is a normal spell card that has you paying 1000 life points, then you target a fairy monster in your grave and add it to your hand. Then, if the Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field or in either grave, you can add a banished Sanctuary in the Sky, or a banished card that mentions it, to your hand. That's a pretty sweet 2-for-1, letting you recycle from 2 different zones, so don't be shy about using Hyperion so you can spread those cards out a bit. I also like how the grave recovery works on any fairy, so you can recover any off-theme fairy that you splash in. And we even get to add to the crossover count. Look, the little cherubs from the Chorus of Sanctuary is here. Oh, how nice. The Sacred Waters in the Sky is a normal spell card that activates a Sanctuary in the Sky directly from your deck, or adds a monster that mentions that field spell from your deck to your hand. Then, if the Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field or in either grave, you can gain 500 life points for each Hyperion and the agent monsters you control. Also, if your monster that mentions the Sanctuary in the Sky would be destroyed by battle, you can banish this card from your grave instead. This is probably meant to be a retrain of the Fountain in the Sky, which is good because that card bites. This card, on the other hand, rocks. While Earth is our Stratos, this is our Rhoda, not only grabbing our core monsters, but also the base Sanctuary in the Sky and putting it right onto your field to enable our effects while throwing out some incidental life gain, though it won't be a really good amount unless you've already established a board. And then it also provides protection from the grave, just to give that setup a bit more staying power. Turns out, staying hydrated is important. Light of Judgment is a normal trap card that you can activate if Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field. You discard a light monster and apply one of the following effects. Either look at your opponent's hand and discard a card from it, or send a card your opponent controls to the grave. Okay, let's call this for what it is. It's Trap Dust Shoot. They printed Trap Dust Shoot for the agents, and it's still a normal trap card, so we get to use all the support for that card type that's been released over the years. It even solves the problem of not being usable against an established board, because it also has non-targeting removal. The downside is that there is actually a cost to use this. If you don't have a spare light in hand to spend on it, you've got a pretty nothing hand, but I think the sheer power of gaining knowledge about our opponent's hand while ripping out its best card cannot be understated. Though, I find it hard to focus on Yu-Gi-Oh when I have the sudden urge to play Super Smash Bros. Melee, but I couldn't tell you why. Fallen Sanctuary is a continuous trap card that, when activated, sets The Sanctuary in the Sky, or a spell or trap that mentions it, directly from your deck. This card's name becomes The Sanctuary in the Sky while on the field or in the grave, and you can also banish a fairy monster from your grave, then target an effect monster your opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of the turn, even if this card leaves the field. So this grabs all of our aforementioned spells and traps and offers quick effect negation, while acting as another copy of Sanctuary in the Sky for all your effects that care about it. I'm telling you, this place is better than it's ever been, which does not really match up with how it looks right now. This must be part of the Possessed Lady Palutena arc of the game. God, I want Kid Icarus Uprising too. Divine Punishment is a counter trap card that you can activate in response to a spell card, trap card, or monster effect activation while the Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field, to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. It's basically a solemn judgment as long as you have the Sanctuary. In fact, this is one of the coolest cards that you can set off of Fallen Sanctuary because it counts as the Sanctuary in the Sky, letting you activate it. Aside from that though, there isn't really much else to mention. Don't make Heaven mad, you won't like it. And that about does it for our agent monsters. Normally we'd end on some tech picks and Nova Scale and all that, but we're actually not done yet. In fact, we're not even halfway there. We've still got to cover the other protector of the Sanctuary, Parshath, all the counter fairies that make up the clergy of this monument, as well as exploring the multiple timelines of the warrior of Zera. It's gonna be a wild ride, so don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss part 2. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the episode, and share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode is brought to you by my lovely patrons, as well as the lovely people over at Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and save 5% on your order by using the coupon code GoldenNova at checkout. Today's episode was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commanders, the Critic of Innocence and Upstairs Media, Nebula Navigators, 3rd Dynasty, Ada Basilisk, Adam Zajdel, Owexatoa Hime, Anansi Dragon, Kane Senpai, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Comrade Copperbottom, Emony Chan, Eric, Frankie, Garland Chaos, Green Knight, Gloomba 331, Great Big Pillock, Groog, Hairbear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Howling Zangetsu, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Carp, Mana Charge, Marion James E. Picata, Megacombi, Millennia Asta, Muzuki Clark, Nathan Vig, Natiel Lee Alexander, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, Sammy Haim, Scott 48, Serenity Towns, Skybuster Leo, That One Dumbass, Thievery Coast and the Wizard Moose, Cosmic Crusaders Alpha Sly, Almento 5010, A Random Pup, Ariel Kersey, Beelzephyr, Baron Von Titty Sprinkles, Beluga Master, Bernag, Blitzwolf, Blue Gem, Borger with a Shotgun, Chaz Ghost, Childish Lamar, Dr. Reaper R.I.P., Drachenwald, Eki Bullock, Eva Padilla, Fabrizio Orpianesi, Hike Boyagian, Herbal D, Ignis Heath the True Draco Slayer, Jester Designs, Kale the Dragon, Kevon Public, Lemon Yu-Gi-Oh, Lobomaru02, Manga Pages, Matt Simmons, Mick Spoofy, Michael Shimabukuro, Nitromo, Obsidian, Ramen Resurrect Chan, Shizuka Nijimura, Sophie, apparently, Stephen Williamson, Taylor Seymour, Terror Top to 3, Tiger X 2476, The Pokemon 52, The Legendary Raven, and Zaldreka, as well as all the lovely Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, be a part of these credits and other awesome perks, it would mean the world to me if you checked out the link to my Patreon in the description or consider joining as a YouTube member. And if you'd like to watch some more fairies while waiting for the next episode, be sure to check out this video where I cover a bit of an odd duck, Cloudians. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.